feel like leadership is less trailblazing and more bushwhacking through chaos with a plastic spork? I get it. If you're overwhelmed, under resourced, and wondering when exactly you became the official fire putter outer, you're not alone. Leadership is wild, but you don't have to wander through it unprepared. Grab your copy of Leadership on the Rocks: How to Survive, Adapt, and Succeed in the Wilderness of Leadership. It's the ultimate survival guide for leaders who've been handed a title and a to-do list, but not a compass. Because you can lead with clarity, courage, and purpose, even when it feels like you're herding cats in a hurricane. Pick it up wherever you buy books, and let's navigate this wilderness together.
And so important is to start picking up and to be sensitive to the telltales of what's happening. For example, silence is the real threat in families. Unspoken resentments, hidden rivalries, unacknowledged contributions, they cause many more damage to families than bad strategies or spreadsheets or whatever, the market conditions.
This is the Leadership on the Rocks podcast, where we equip and empower leaders like you to thrive in and create harmony between your professional and personal lives. I'm your host, Bethany Rees, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking with René Sonneveld about how the real challenge in leadership aren't the strategies or spreadsheets, but the unspoken dynamics, those hidden elephants in our relationships and organizations that shape trust, decisions, and performance. René Sonneveld is the author of The Elephant in the Family Room: Managing the Complexities of Legacy Businesses, which offers a practical roadmap for addressing the emotional dynamics that quietly derail legacy businesses. He is a leadership coach empowering entrepreneurs, C-suite executives, and corporate teams. He also enjoys coaching athletes and sports teams on mental performance and works closely with large family systems as an enterprise family coach. With a wealth of information, y'all, I cannot wait to read all of these things that he has done. I am in awe of this. But he has experience as a chairman and a C-suite executive across, listen to this, the USA, Europe, and South America. René brings deep expertise in developing senior executives to the CEO level and advising corporate boards on governance and strategy. He began his career as an international tax lawyer in the Netherlands, Hong Kong, and Curacao. Yes, you heard me right. Before building his business acumen in consumer goods, commodity trading, and banking across, here we go, Argentina, Switzerland, the USA, and Uruguay. His global leadership roles include serving managing director at UBS and head of global wealth management at Deutsche, I hope I'm saying these right, but Deutsche Bank. In 2010, he concluded his corporate career at Citibank New York's Family and Corporate Governance Champion for Latin America. René was appointed Honorary Consul General of the Netherlands by the Queen, yes, you heard me right, the Queen, in 2012, and it's a role that is now renewed by the current King in 2017 and 2022. He currently serves as the Global Board of Coaching Education of the International Coaching Federation, where he helps set standards and drive innovation in the coaching profession. As if all of that wasn't enough, he is also committed to the circular economy and sustainable energy and is involved in developing a green hydrogen supply chain from South America to Europe, an initiative aimed at supporting decarbonization goals while benefiting local communities. René also served as a distinguished executive in residence at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business and teaches leadership coaching for organizational performance at American University, Rutgers, North Carolina State University, and the U.S. National Institute for Standards and Technology. Y'all, he even holds a law degree from the University of Amsterdam and, but wait, there's more, an MBA from the University of Chicago. His additional studies include psychology for high-performance sports at Barça Universitas, hope I'm saying that right, and leadership coaching at American University. He is a quadrilingual, 5 languages, master certified coach. René is also an ICF mentor coach and advanced certified team coach, as well as a master certified team coach with Team Coaching International. He's also a member of the Association for Applied Sports Psychology. Now, as if all of that wasn't enough, René's also the proud father of 5. He enjoys flying, sailing, sports, writing, and cooking for family and friends. Renee, I am beyond impressed by your resume, so welcome so much to the Leadership on the Rock show.
Thank you so much, Bethany, and you make me laugh listening to all that. It's really not here to
Oh,
brag
man.
about. Um, you know,
But I love
I'm,
it. You're
I'm a
bringing such
humble
an
I'm a humble
expertise that we
man,
need.
really. I'm just interested in lots of things, and I like to be in movement.
Well, I am completely inspired. Let's just start with number one. I only know English. It's very, very sad. I did take Spanish in high school and a little bit in college, but you speak five languages, and that just shows such a deep love and compassion for connecting with people all around the world. And I admire that so much. So, where are you originally from? Are you originally from the Netherlands?
I'm from the Netherlands, and I must say, in the Netherlands, we have a big head start. We are a small country located between big countries, our trading partners, France and Germany, and we have England on the other side of the channel. And so that gives us already kind of a push into getting to learn other languages. And actually, and I always tell this to anybody who likes to hear this. I went to a public school, and most of the schools in the Netherlands are public. There are no private schools really. It's more for maybe for some expats, American or British schools and so on. But most schools, they're public. And in my public school, I had the choice between 12 languages at
Wow.
school, and I choose seven. I like language. Math is not my strength. So I'm a much more lingual person, and it gave me great joy in the journey of my life to be able to connect in the languages of other countries and connect with people of those other countries. So I really truly enjoyed it. Yeah.
And that totally explains why you're doing what you're doing now. But I'm gonna have to disagree with you. You've got to be good at math. If you're a tax lawyer, you've got to be good at some math because I can't even begin
Okay.
to understand my taxes.
Bethany, spoiler alert. And now, when I was 18 years old, like many young kids, I thought about what is it that I want to study. And the real passion I had was for history. But in
Mm,
the 80s, studying history, that gave me a pathway to become a teacher. And I'm talking now from the perspective of when I was 18 years old, okay?
yes.
And that didn't excite me at all to become a teacher.
Hmm.
I was 18, I wanted to make money. So instead of that, I studied law and specialized in tax law. And so I didn't follow my passion, I followed my ego.
Mm,
And to tell you the truth, I didn't like it at all. For several years, I worked in a tax law firm, a very big one, great
mm,
firm, wonderful people in the Netherlands, then in Hong Kong, and then in Curacao. And every Monday morning when we had a partners meeting, or I was sitting there, and there came these people super excited, my colleagues, and they were talking about the new literature and tax and IRS code changes and Supreme
mhm.
Court, eviction, whatever. And I was sitting there and said, this is not for me. So it was not my passion.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward, I didn't want to be a teacher, remember? And today, in this second stage of my life, I'm teaching at several universities, and I feel
Yes,
so
there you go.
incredibly privileged to be able to do that.
Mm,
You know,
I
it's
understand.
it's karma.
Yeah.
You can't get away. It comes back to you, right?
Oh man. Well, can I just say, so I do have a history degree and I was a history teacher and there is no money in it. So your 18-year-old self was spot on financially with that. But I still enjoy teaching. So like you, we found our paths later in life. I
Yeah.
am so excited to dive into the book, The Elephant in the Family Room. So, just even hearing that, we talk about, this is a great phrase that a lot of people say, hey, there's an elephant in the room. It's this big thing that we're not talking about. But I'm just curious, you talk about the big elephant as far as leadership is concerned, really aren't technical challenges. It's more of the emotional and relational challenges. So, can we start off this conversation by you just defining for us what you mean by the elephant in the room?
Yeah, and the elephant is really this unspoken emotion. Everybody intuitively feels the elephant, and most people actually will see it. It's standing straight in front of them. But it's so hard to talk about it because we have these patterns, we have these niceties in our families, we have this brilliant way of tiptoeing around the real hard issues. I
Mm.
work with a lot of families, and they are wonderful escape artists. They have this way of, evading the hard issues. Let's go skiing in Aspen with the whole family, and it's a jolly good trip we have, and it's great fun, and it's wonderful, and everybody's busy doing their ski things, and in the evening we're busy eating and whatever, and we have the great family time, and that's wonderful. That's important to have that family time, but the real issues very often people they try to to avoid them,
Mm-hmm.
and and I think that's the biggest challenge in families. Basically, if I work with families that are in disarray, deep inside they love each other.
Yes.
There's so much connection, but there is a obstacle standing there in the road, and they don't know how to resolve. And that's the elephant. That's the
Mm-hmm.
elephant, the unspoken emotion that very often is. And it's not only in big families, in large enterprise families. It happens in every family.
Mm-hmm.
I
It
very
even
often
happens
have to
in
deal with.
marriages. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, it happens in boardrooms. It happens in
Mhm.
marriages. It happens in friendships. It can happen in sports teams. It can happen in the locker room of a soccer team or a football
Yeah.
team. Everywhere.
It is. And I think you're hitting such a, core undercurrent of not just society, not just business, but the family. I mean, everything. It's that unspoken emotion. It really is a big elephant that we don't talk about. We actually, like you're talking about on vacation, we actively avoid. I'm busy skiing. I'm busy eating. Let's talk about anything else other than the elephant in the room. So, in looking at that, if everybody feels the elephant, how do we notice its presence, and then how do we even take action to begin saying, hey, let's start talking about the elephant that's over there, this big unspoken emotion? How do we speak about the unspoken?
Yeah, and and that's the hard thing,
Mm-hmm.
because as a human being, our natural DNA, and I'm going now really back long time, our natural DNA as a human being is to be comfortable. That's what we do. When we come home from work, what do? We kick out our shoes and we hang out at home.
Mm-hmm.
We take a book or watch a movie or do whatever activities. We like to be comfortable. That's our natural state as any human. So whatever we can do to avoid discomfort in general, we will do. And so these are hard conversations, and our natural state is to avoid them, although we know that it's necessary, know that it's meaningful to do this, but we procrastinate on it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I see and that really can break open these conversations is starting to create I call this a safe space where we can say, okay, can we step in our safe space where we are not judgmental to each other, where we're open to listening to each other, where we let each other speak out? Let's go into our safe space cubicle, wherever that is in the house, or we create it imaginarily here at this moment, right?
Yes.
What is really going on? What else?
Ooh, that's such a
Being
good
deeply
question. What is
curious.
really going on? Like, that is a great question because I don't think we ask it enough. What's really going on here? Mm.
Yeah, deep curiosity. It is, the difference between having a transactional conversation and something which is transformational, deeply meaningful, and basically only that small thing of being curious of what's going on can change a person's life.
Oh, that's such a great point. And I want to pause for 1 minute. Everybody listening, everything that you're hearing Renee talk about, I want you to think about it parallel. It applies at work and it applies at home, in your marriage, in your friendships, in your parenting, in your, extended family dynamics with your parents or aunts or uncles or whoever. But it's at work and it's at home. So what Renee's telling you, what he started to tell you, please see it how it plays out in both places. What's really going on in the boardroom? What's really going on in the living room? And
Right.
so dive deeper for us. You say curiosity can change everything. And I think so often we're so task focused, we're so task oriented. I just got to do the thing. I got to, accomplish this slide deck for the presentation. I got to cook dinner. I got to mow the lawn. I got to whatever. We're task, 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 task. That we don't actually notice what's really going on in the dynamics of the relationship. So, how do we get better at staying curious and noticing what's really going on?
Yeah, and this is so interesting. You say task, 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 and most people that I work with, they come to me and they say, and they bring to me what I call a technical problem. Hey, Rene, from the 360 assessment, it shows that I'm not very good at listening.
Mm,
Teach me some skills. Give me some tools. What's a great book to read? And I say, oh, go to Amazon.com and how to become a better listener. That's what they ask. Because we as humans, again, we are so geared towards efficiency. That's what I mentioned before, transactional
mm,
conversations, right? I give you a problem and you give me a quick fix and we go on. But that's not the truth of the matter because many of the issues that we have, they're not technical problems. They're adaptive challenges. They go much deeper. And a technical problem is pretty easy to resolve. Let's say you receive a television and a new remote control and you don't know how to work the remote control. I will tell you, hey, go to your computer, download the manual application, play around with this, the quick start guide, and you know how to work your remote control. And not only can you do it one time, you can do it many times. The adaptive challenges, they go so much deeper. They are really hard. Even if you have all the information, still it's hard to resolve because to resolve you need to change your beliefs and maybe some of your values and you have to take much more action in order to get things done. And that's the problem, is that very often in our conversations, also within the families, things stay at the surface. Kid comes home with a great note or not such a great note, we comment to it, but we don't go deeper. Kind of tell
mm.
me how you're feeling about this, or tell me your deeper emotions around this note. You worked so hard for it, and so on. We are very good at keeping things at the surface. But what we
Mhm.
really need, I mean, it's not all the time, but what we really need in order to move further and to get deeper is to grab underneath those layers of that superficiality. And that's what's happening a lot in any kind of interaction between people and systems. If that's a family system, it's a business system, an
Mhm.
organization, whatever it is.
Oh, that's so good. So, Renee, I'm not going to lie. I am a gardener. I love planting and growing things. And as you were talking about staying surface level, I know that whenever I plant seeds, if I don't plant it at the right depth and cultivate the soil and water it, make sure it has enough light, the root system will not be strong. It won't go down deep that will withstand, a rainstorm, the scorching sun, in the summer. And when you have a shallow root, when you stay surface level, it is so easy. It takes the slightest little change in the environment, and that plant is just like, it's going to die, right? But the plants that go deep, that have that healthier system, that healthier root system, and that's what we call it, as a root system, as you mentioned, systems, it can withstand so many more elements in its environment. And I can't help but see the parallelism of what you were just saying, that whether it's at work or at home, if we stay surface level and that is what the relationship is built on, it's not going to take a huge change in the environment for that system to die, to really struggle. But if it has a
Absolutely.
deeper root system where you actually go deeper to talk about these things and build stronger relationships, it can withstand so many more elements that come and go in its environment. That's just what popped in my head, you know,
Yeah.
thinking about that. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's a very strong metaphor and it really visualizes what's happening in again in family systems or corporate systems or and anywhere where there's interaction between
Mm-hmm.
people. Because again, it's comfortable to stay at the surface. It is uncomfortable to go deeper because people very often they have doubts or they are judgmental
Mm-hmm.
or they have critiques about themselves, distractions. There are many reasons why people do not want to go deeper, and they procrastinate on that when it's really important. And it doesn't mean that you always have to go deep. That could be
Yeah.
a bit heavy in a family. Kind.
Yeah.
I see this picture of a child in a family where father and mother are both psychologues or therapists and whatever, and every conversation is heavy. And that's not what this is about. But there are these moments, these pivotal moments where it is important that
Yeah.
we can show up with deeper sincerity, and we feel safe to ask
Yeah.
powerful and maybe sometimes what other people may consider painful questions.
hmm Time and place really does matter in having those conversations. Number one, it should never happen in public. That's something I learned in education is you never, belittle a child, period, but you definitely don't have a conversation of another people where you're going to add that embarrassment dynamic into their relationship. So, it's got to have a proper place and time. Can you help us give us some strategies of, okay, there's an elephant. How do we, in the busyness of our lives, in the busyness of work, the busyness of home, we're doing all the tasks. How do we notice the elephant so that we can acknowledge there's some unspoken dynamic that needs to be addressed? How can we
Yeah.
grow in that power or that skill set really of noticing, hey, I think there's actually something deeper here. I need to pause, be curious, and step into that. How do we grow in that skill set? If you're enjoying the Leadership on the Rocks podcast, be sure to subscribe and follow so you don't miss a single episode. Also, be sure to rate the show. We hope to earn 5 stars in serving you in leadership, and through your ratings, it'll help us get the word out about what we do here at Leadership on the Rocks. Now, back to the show.
Yeah. So, and that's the beauty of it. This is not that you were born with certain whatever DNA, and you can't do this because you were born like this, right? This is, as you mentioned very well, it's a skill set, and it can be taught. And so important is to start picking up and to be sensitive to the telltales of what's happening.
Mm,
For example, silence is the real threat in families. Unspoken resentments, hidden rivalries, unacknowledged contributions, they cause many more damage to families than bad strategies or spreadsheets or whatever, the market conditions, right? So it's important to start to use your unconsciousness almost to start seeing, are there some red flags here, right? I mentioned silence. Another very big driver for decisions are emotions, right? Siblings that are fighting with each other, or there are situations that basically I write about in my book that are apparent. For example, in business succession, you have the patriarch and the matriarch, and they are getting older. And I'm talking about families where the patriarch, matriarch, they have been
mhm.
managing everything, and they're 75 or 85 years old, and the kids there are 50, 55, and still they don't step off. And you need to talk about that,
Yeah.
why they push on, and probably very frequently that is kind of, if I hand over the company or the business or the to my business successors, it's like dying, I'm the
hmm
fear of irrelevance. So there are a lot of situations that I describe in my book, which are not, I didn't invent them. They're not unique, but where you can see, well, these are moments that it's really important to have this family conversation, right? Sometimes they're apparent, as I mentioned, the silence. Sometimes it's open warfare actually in families. So that's a good moment to have some peace conference inside. But also there are these pivotal moments in family systems, whatever, a new son or daughter-in-law comes in, or there's a divorce, or
Oh,
Somebody
yeah.
passes away or somebody gets ill, or there are some family members that want to sell the shares in the company. There are these moments, and these are moments that it's great to pause and to see if there's an elephant here
Mhm.
or not, right?
Yeah.
But if it's there, this is the moment we need to talk about it.
Yeah. You know, so I come from family business. My parents had a pizza restaurant. They now have a CNC, well, machine shop. And I'm not going into that business. I don't know anything about it and have no desire. But now I am an entrepreneur starting my own business, right? So I've
Mhm.
seen all these examples of family businesses. And actually, most small businesses make up business, period. People like jobs out, and I'm not an economist, but most of the employees in the world work for a small business. Yesterday, I had an electrician at my house, and it was a gentleman and his two sons, family business. And so it really does impact. You have a family dynamic in a relationship, the way in which your family engages. But then when you carry whatever kind of relationship that is into the work life, I've seen healthy and I've seen very unhealthy of, I'm mad at my mom or dad for this one thing that has nothing to do with work. Well, I'm carrying now that emotion into the work day. And, maybe I'm being disrespectful, but it has absolutely nothing to do with work. It has something to do with, family and Aunt Susie or whatever. And there's a huge conflict there that we don't recognize to separate. And what happens is we allow all of these unspoken emotional things to just grow. I just feel like that it's this trash pile, this landfill that keeps growing and growing and growing. Just keep throwing more trash on it. We never dive into it until, whoever owns the business, the patriarch, the matriarch, dies and they throw the keys to you and say, take care of the business. And then they fall into the grave. That's
Yeah.
kind of what happens. And what we're left with is a pile of trash.
Yeah. So several things, and you're so right. Several things that you mentioned. I just like to give a short comment to it. Absolutely, most of the people in the world, they work in family-owned or family-influenced businesses. More than 50% of the shares quoted in stock exchanges globally, or 50% of the companies owned on stock exchanges globally, have a strong family influence still.
Mm,
It's huge.
yeah.
I mean, the influence on families, on business, on our whole societal system, on the
Mhm.
workplace, it is gigantic. And the good news is, the good news perspective is that well functioning family businesses are much more profitable and are much more thriving than 100% publicly quoted companies. Why?
Wow.
Because families, they make quick decisions.
Mm,
They don't need a lot of red tape. There's a lot of love and shared purpose, real shared purpose, and this sense
mm,
of belonging, right? So there's all this good energy. So my book certainly doesn't say all family business is bad.
yeah.
No, there's amazing family business. But also with that same emotion, it can turn completely against. Because if the emotion is bad, then it can be very destructive. Because you can't really, you know, fire a
Hmm.
family member in a company. You can fire an executive. He doesn't align, he doesn't belong, he doesn't perform.
Yeah.
What do we do? Well, let's replace him for someone else. It's a bit hard to replace your son, right?
Yeah.
Or your father for that reason. So, family businesses are great. I mean, but my book is to help them
Hmm.
stay great and
Yeah.
to resolve conflicts because if there are, they can be so painful, right?
Hmm.
Brothers or sisters that don't talk with each other. I've seen so many situations, proxy wars being played out
Hmm.
in family systems, and well,
Yeah.
there's a lot
It's almost
there.
like a fight for status too. there can be a lot of competition in family. But I love what you were saying of, if you think about investments, think about, most people, whenever they think about investments, they think about investing for retirement. And when you're younger, you invest in higher risk stock or mutual funds or whatever because there's a greater reward, but there's more risk. And then as you get older, you take less risk. What I thought I heard you say, or kind of, beat around the bush, is when it comes to family business, it's like a high risk stock. If it works well, man, your returns are going to be amazing. If the family can remove the dysfunction from
Yeah,
itself, from its business, it is going to make more money because they have the shared purpose, the love, the communication for quick decisions. But if they allow that dysfunction to bleed in and they don't address it, then the risk is that it's going to tank and take everybody down with it. So if you
yeah.
think about it that way, how are you willing to die to yourself and your own pride and your proximity wars and your status and your titles and how much money everybody's making and all the family dynamics that are at play there, and run it like an organized business without the dysfunction, the return is going to be so much better. I love that. There's so much hope in that. That's what I hope for. I have a business and I don't know if my children want to be involved in it or not, but if they do, I got to make sure there's no dysfunction there.
Absolutely. And there's something else as well. I mean, even though the family has a business, you choose not to be involved and start your own business, which is
Mm-hmm.
fantastic, which is great, that people have a choice as well. It's not that because we have a business, I have to be in the business.
Mm-hmm.
It's very smart not to be in the business of the family if you feel that it's not purposeful for you, if you do not feel that you're going to enjoy this journey. There are a lot of family members in the business because they must. They have
Mm.
this push. They feel
It's the
that,
guilt trip that gets them there. Just
yeah,
joking.
oh, absolutely. And then they have this guilt asking themselves, am I good enough? Am I
Mm.
serving my family right? Am I the right person to protect this legacy
Mm.
and carry that for all the other family stakeholders? Because, by the way, in a family business, you mentioned that if it goes belly up somehow or it doesn't work out, everybody will point at you
Mm.
because you are managing it. It's not that you are the CEO of a company and, well, the business didn't go so well and tomorrow you pop up as the CEO somewhere else, right?
Mm.
I mean, there's a very strong personal attachment, personal responsibility that weights often much heavier than people working in corporate.
It's so true. And thinking about culture, right? Because in order to have these conversations about the elephant, the unspoken emotional tension that's going on, you know, I feel like a lot of people read enough books, listen to enough podcasts if they're in the professional world about organizational culture. You have to make it safe, where people trust one another so you can have these conversations, so you can disagree. In order to get to the best decision of what should happen. So you can have that healthy conflict and all of those things. So we talk about that professionally, but then for some reason, think about it this way, and I'm going to paint with a broad brush for this psychological statement, but oftentimes we will have bigger emotional reactions with the people that we love most. I love my family more than I love a coworker, right? But yet I will blow up, on a family member, but not my coworker. And so there's like certain rules of engagement at work in which I abide by, but when we go home, it's like those walls come down, and I am more um, able, not able, that's a terrible word, but more likely to have an emotional reaction. Whereas at work, it would be more of a professional response. And so, how do we shift that dynamic into the family culture, right? Especially if we're working with family. We know professionally, culture, I got to have trust. I got to respond, not react. How do I build that culture in my family so that I'm not reacting and blowing up emotionally, that I'm making it a safe place where we can talk about those unspoken emotional, things of what's really going on here? How do I make it safe when we're talking about family culture?
Yeah, and um, it's a great question. And while you were formulating this question, a memory came to my mind. I was married. My first wife, unfortunately, she passed away. She was Argentine, and she made me move to Argentina in the late 80s of the
Mhm.
previous century, okay?
The
And
1900s, people.
and so I'm Dutch. I come from a small Protestant family. You know, we keep things at the service and we keep our emotions by for ourselves. And I love my brother. I love my parents. My Unfortunately they passed away, but I love them to death. I have the best memories of them. Nothing about that. But now I suddenly, I was parachuted into a large Catholic Italian Spanish background family in South America. And so my Spanish at that time was still a little bit wacky, but I got the grasp of it. And my father-in-law, he was an industrialist. And so the whole family was involved in the family business. And then Friday evening, we would drive to Concordia, which is in Entre Rios. It's 450 kilometers from Buenos Aires, for a family gathering. Every Friday evening, we would go there, and it would always this would always be the same. We arrive, great hugs. A picada means little, a cocktail and whatever, and then we would go on the table, and the conversation from politeness they would shift to business and whatever, and it would be tension, and it would be a fight, and everybody shouting to each other, crying, and then in the end, everybody hugging each other.
Mm.
It's just amazing. It was for me every time like being in a Fellini movie,
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking about. It's like
Italian
watching a movie.
Italian drama. And it was beautiful. And it taught me so much about the power of family love and the power of, feeling safe enough to show your discomfort, discomfort, or your not agreeing with something,
Mhm.
and feeling free to show that. But then also, it always comes back this love, this underlying foundation that we have together that keeps us standing up and you know and getting and probably in North Europe people would deal with this in a much more effective manner, to say it politely, right? They would never go that deep. But it was beautiful, and it showed me kind of that side of life as well, where people can be highly emotional and and still that family tie brings it all back to the center. Hey, we are family, and whatever happens, we're going to deal with this together. We can
Mhm.
fix this together.
I love what you just said. We are family, we will fix this together. Even if you said that in a work setting, we are on the same team. We will fix this together. Ooh, that would give me such a sigh of relief. So even, whatever camp you sleep in, whether or not you call your coworkers family or you don't, and you're like, they're not my family, whatever. It doesn't matter. What you just said is the heart of the issue. Does everybody believe that you have their best interest in mind and that you've got their back? That's what everybody really wants to know
That's huge.
is, yeah, do you support me and do you have my back? And
Yeah,
and when a problem comes, because guys, problems are going to come and go, do they have that feeling of, you know what, we'll figure it out together?
yeah.
And I think
Best
that's
intention,
the switch between the
right?
two.
Absolutely. And if there's this trust that whatever the feedback you're giving me, you do this with best intent,
Mm-hmm.
it's huge. But there has to be trust. And
Yeah.
and you need to connect with people in order to establish trust. And in order to connect with people, you need to communicate with them. I make this formula: communication, connection,
Mm-hmm.
organically trust grows. And now we have trust and there's best intent. And so I don't get immediately upset when you tell me something, because I believe that you do this really for the betterment, for my furtherment, for the furtherment of our organization. Can we trust each
Mm-hmm.
other? It's
Yeah,
huge.
that is huge. And thinking about emotional governments, what number one, what is that? A lot of people haven't heard that phrasing, emotional governance. And I know that that's something you definitely tap into of, you don't just need legal paperwork, you don't need processes. I mean, yes, you need those things, but you need emotional government. So can you dive in and tell us what you mean by that and then what that actually looks like in practice?
Yeah. So, and that's also the reason why I got into this. I was working as a banker, um, and I was working with with large families that own businesses, and I think I was reasonably well competent in my job in advising people on and families on their structures and on the rules of ownership. Let's call this the legal governance, right?
Mm.
Where I really was bad at was kind of understanding emotions or dealing with the emotions. So I was sitting literally out around family tables with the family, and the patriarchy said something, and we got to a structure that would work, but you would feel there was still something missing, emotions, and I would not go into those emotions, although I also saw the elephant, because if I would go into it, I didn't know how to deal with it. It's like
Mm.
stepping on a landmine, right? It will
Yeah.
explode, and I don't know how to diffuse that landmine. So
Hmm.
that got me in this train of studying neuroscience and sociology and high performance sports psychology and all that stuff, because I realized that by just setting the rules with some kind of legal governance, a structure, a contract, a legal agreement, that's not enough,
Mm.
because it sets the rule of ownership. Emotional governance, it sets the rule of relationships. And in
Ooh.
practice, this means creating safe spaces for honest conversations, agreeing on how we're going to handle conflict,
Mm.
recognizing the fairness is as much as the perception as it is about numbers. So when families want to think about emotional governance, then they can start by simply setting aside regular time to talk, not just about business, but about how they are relating to each other. It's kind of a basic thing.
Mm.
And when we are in this cocoon of whatever, to set that moment apart about how we relate to each other, let's be in the space without judgment.
Mm.
Let's be in the space where we believe that everybody has best intent. How broken that intent may seem to me, how off that person may seem to me, I, at this moment, and without judgment, this is not my ego, this person comes with best intent. So, creating a safe space for honest conversation, and also in that rules of creating the safe space is okay, if a conflict comes up, how do we handle? Do we start shouting to each other? Do we start interrupting, or do we let a person
Mhm.
speak out? Only those simple rules already, they change a lot. Because very often in emotions, it gets heated, right?
Yeah.
Now I have my opinion, and he has his opinion, and she has her opinion, and everybody's an opinion. And now we all shout into each other, and we are totally blocked to accept anything that the other person is telling us.
Man.
So setting the parameters of how we are going to talk in this moment, it is fundamental. And families that got it right, they intuitively they can switch towards this because they got the skills to do it.
Yes, absolutely. If you think about it professionally, we do team building activities. Team building activities is for you to have opportunities for your personality to really shine, but also for people to get to know your personality, to get to know you on a deeper level outside of the tasks. And then you use that knowledge to know how to engage with that person. That's really kind of the
Yeah.
point of team building is I get to learn more about you, you get to learn more about me, and we get to learn how to do the dynamic dance of, oh, I know Bethany, she's a detailed person, she's going to need the details whenever, Rene over here is high level, he just needs the headline. I'm learning how to engage with everybody. And I don't think we do that enough in our families of recognizing, yes, you're a family, but you still have different personalities, different needs, different ways of engagement. And as you talk about this emotional governance, why aren't we intentional in saying, hey, let's get to know each other a little bit better and how we're going to, I love you called it rules of engagement, how we're going to handle conflict within our family or our family business, how we're going to handle, whenever a problem arises. So everybody knows kind of their role in this. We're not proactive enough in that, just as
Yeah.
families in general, but especially family businesses is probably the same. So thank you
Well,
for
and
that.
and also it's also partly because when we grow up as children, where we all play together and we have this
Mm.
vacation together, and maybe we go to the same school and we see each other in the pools and we kick the ball and whatever we do.
Yeah.
The dynamics, they start changing when we grow up, right? I mean, some of us, we are interested in entering in the family business. Some of us, we're not interested at all, but we're still stakeholders. We have shares.
Hmm.
So we are interested in kind of the value of the dividends that those shares are going to create for us. Um, there can be things that in when we're young, we don't really see that, but you have sometimes in families where you have the golden child, the one that can't do wrong, and the others and whatever this person does is kind of applauded in the family, and the others they feel a bit neglected, and now the golden child grows up and takes control in the company and so on, and there's this resentment from the past, and very often that resentment doesn't come up when people are on vacation, but they come up when there's moments to have a discussion about
Yeah.
reinvesting the profits in the company, about company growth, about other. And so that resentment very often comes up in a kind of a proxy war where the heated issue becomes something else than the resentment to the person, but it's related to whatever we are doing. And again, it's a distraction, but that's where it pops up.
Man, it is so important. I thank you so much for everything that you're highlighting here, that we have got to pay attention to, beyond the transactional relationship, there is the relationship side of things. It's not just transactions, it's relational. And so for leaders who are listening and realize, hey, I see the elephant over there, whether it be at work or at home or both, maybe it's a family business. What is their first step to address the elephant? Like, what encouragement or first step would you give them once they see the elephant? What's their next
Yeah.
step?
Well, communicate, communicate, and communicate more.
Mm,
That's the first step because it all pivots
hmm.
about communication, about the willingness to understand each other. And that's kind of a big step. So families, they don't need to wait for a consultant to come in, right?
Mm,
Even just an honest conversation about what's gone unsaid can change the entire dynamic. One conversation can release years of tension. I've seen it,
hmm.
but
It's
it's
so
often
true.
so hard
It is. But
because
you're
we
so
have these
right.
patterns. But it's all about communication, right? And then the whole things that we can create around that, right? To understand what are emotions, how they drive decisions, to understand that you need legal governance, but you also need emotional governance. To understand that legacy is more than only money, about wealth. It's about stories, about values, about roles, about expectations. It is so important to in the transition of businesses to create that sense of belonging where people feel seen and valued and included. So there's all that stuff as well, right? But if I could say something, a small step that creates big shifts is to have a honest conversation.
Mm,
And you know what? When you do that, the
yeah,
elephant shrinks.
it does.
It shrinks, and it becomes very, very small.
I love that. And as you mentioned, the next step, the first step you take is communicate, communicate, communicate. Um, I think so often we we judge ourselves by our intentions. Oh, they should know that. They know I love them. They know I value them. They know I appreciate the work that they do. But have you communicated it?
Yeah.
It's so important. I love that that was the answer because it deflates it. It deflates the elephant. And I love it that you said shrink it. So, Renee, I just thank you so much for your wisdom. As we think about all the things that you shared with us about the unspoken emotional elephant in the room, whether it's the boardroom or the living room. What are some key takeaways that our listeners, need to apply to grow in their own leadership?
Emotional intelligence,
Mm,
that's huge. Um, you know, I work with a lot of leaders and they're so capable. They're so well trained. They went to engineering school, then they did a PhD in MIT, and just to be sure, they did an MBA at Harvard. I mean, I asked them, how many more skills do you need in your toolbox, right? Yeah, but I still feel that I'm plateauing here, that I'm not growing.
Yeah.
Maybe the answer is somewhere else than adding more, you
Hmm.
know, top universities to your portfolio,
Yeah.
right? So emotional intelligence, it is huge
Hmm.
in leadership. It is yeah, it's one of the things that often our leaders they miss out on.
Yeah. I
Because
feel every bit of what you just said. I feel like early in my leadership, I was very well read, loved podcasts, like I love learning. Um, and I knew the steps, the systems, the protocols of what you do. And what I quickly learned is it doesn't matter about any of that stuff if I don't have the right relationship, if I don't cultivate that soil for the culture in which all that stuff is implemented. And I had to learn really quickly that actually emotional intelligence is the number one skill you need to lead and influence others. And then the other skills, the technical side of it can come later. You definitely you don't want a brain surgeon without technical skills. I get it. You don't want a leader that doesn't have any technical skills, but really emotional is where you start because that's where you connect first. But such good stuff. So Renee, what is one poor decision you would warn our leaders to avoid? Like, come on, leaders, don't do this one thing. You're better than that. Stop it.
oh, there are the whole bunch. But first of all, bring it back to the elephant. Don't avoid the elephant, right? Don't pretend tensions do not exist and refuse to talk about them because silence only deepens the conflicts and makes it harder
Mhm.
to resolve later. Silence inflates the elephant,
Yeah.
right? We want to deflate the elephant, right? So that's kind of really important in the basic. But one problem I often see in companies is where the founders they cling on too long, right?
Mm.
They older generation that wants to hold on to the power indefinitely. And I hear things like they are not ready yet. Well,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, they're 50 years old. They've worked the whole life in your company. They went to two top universities. They are, they know the world. They have created great results. They're not ready yet. So that's another thing. Then there's often in family systems this confusion between fairness with equality, right? So that every child must receive the same rather than recognizing the different roles, the contributions, sacrifice that each of us is
Mhm.
prepared to make, right?
Yeah.
Then what happens a lot is where we mix business and family conflicts, right? So I spoke about the golden boy, so dragging unresolved childhood rivalries or parental approval issues into the boardroom decision. I have
Yeah.
some amazing examples for that. Can I give you one?
Oh, please.
This is a tremendous story, and I was part of that. I was not part of that, but I was an observer in this story. These were two brothers. They were around their 70 years old, and they had inherited from their parents a huge farm. I mean, I'm talking about a really, really big farm. And so they got older, and the children, they all went to study, lived in the city, and so on. They were not interested in dealing with the farm. So the brothers decided, let's sell the farm. Okay, buyer came in and so on, and we were sitting there at the office, in the office of the public notary to sign the deed. And when the first brother had already signed the deed, the second one was ready to sign, and he said, "Hey," to his first brother, "the desk in the office, I want to take that with me," right? And the first brother said, "What you mean, the desk? I have been working behind the desk for the last 40 years." Because he was, let's say, the farm administrator, and his
Mhm.
brother was the one that was actually going around the farm. "I want to take the desk with me." And then the first one said, "No, because you probably don't remember, but when I was a little child, I was sitting riding horse on my father's knees in front of the desk, and my father said, "Son, when you're grown up, this desk belongs to you." Well, then the other brother said, "Why don't you, I give you money, why don't you buy any desk you want and whatever." Well, the whole fight was around the desk,
Wow.
right? It was not around the desk. It was, they considered psychologically, this was the last moment that whatever was not said or brought up or frustrations that could be ventilated, this was the moment to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, huge fight broke out. It was highly uncomfortable for everybody that was present. The older brother didn't sign the deed. They had a big fight. They separated, and the kids from both sides, they were desperate because the farm was getting in disarray and so on. And finally, they sold the farm a few years later with a difference in price of $20 million.
Oh my goodness.
That was the price of that desk.
Wow. Wow.
Plus that, let's say, the brothers, and that's actually worse, they couldn't see each other eye to eye anymore.
It ruined the
So there's
relationship.
also this schism in the family that happened. They lost a lot of money, and there was this big separation.
Yeah.
So that what happens.
Mm-hmm. If you're not aware of the psychology at play within the relationship, you're going to be burned by it. You just are. You have to learn how to put on the emotional intelligence lenses so that you see the elephant, acknowledge it, the psychology at play, and address it. Otherwise,
Yeah.
gosh, not only did they lose their relationship with each other, which is grieving, but then financially $20 million down the drain as well. That's just, man,
Yes,
thank you for sharing that
absolutely.
story. It's horrible. So Rene, where can our listeners go to learn more about you, your work, and where can they go grab a copy of your book? And I love it again, the elephant in the family room, managing complexities of legacy businesses. Where can they go to learn more about you and get your book?
Yeah. So the book is sold worldwide. Easiest probably is through Barnes and Nobles or Amazon.com. These large platforms. You can buy it. It's in Kindle, in the ebook reading version. It's also in hardcover and pocket version. So there are all these different options how you can buy it. If you want to know more about me, you can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Spotify, where I have podcast. You can go to my website, www.renesonneveld.com. So there are a lot of ways how you can get in touch with me through my website. For example, you can click on the link and then we can hook up a virtual coffee, as I call it. And so yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. Rene, thank you so much. And guys, I'll put all the links in the show notes so you can connect with Rene. You have just been a fabulous guest. I have learned so much about you, and I have a lot to consider in my own family, business, and dynamics. And I just thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your expertise. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Bethany, and it was an honor for me, a privilege to be on your show and for your insightful questions. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. All right, guys, until next time, continue putting in the work of building your life and leadership on the rocks, the essential rocks. God bless. Remember, the most essential rock you can build your life and leadership on is the rock of Jesus Christ. Today's Bible verse comes from Genesis chapter 4, verse 7. If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it.